Is this what I have to do? Hello? Yeah, it looks... I think we're okay. Weird. Very strange. Well, welcome. I haven't streamed in a little bit, so we're going to hope that this turns out well enough. But I am going to rank out the MCU. That's what I'm going to do. First things first, I need to grab this chat. Ooh, we're going to turn that down. Hold on. What are we doing? Where are we at? What's going on? Pop out. We'll cram that right over here. Take the... There we go, baby. Welcome, welcome if you are joining in. Appreciate you showing up. Oh. Ooh, chat looks weird on the side there. That's strange. Weird. Do I need to adjust that? I feel like I need to adjust it, actually. We're going to do that for now. I don't know what it's doing. Test. Yo, yo. Okay, that's looking better. I don't know why it's like that, though. That's strange. We'll have to fix chat. Probably another time. But hey, welcome. Let me close out this ad here. If you're not familiar with who I am, I'm BlueMuztang. I'm going to rank the MCU in a Tiermaker. I like using Tiermaker a lot. I've got a whole overlay for it in case you can't tell. I think stats are fun. I think ranking things is fun. Figuring out what is best, what is worst, you know. Not so much what is good or what is bad, but what's best, what's worst is always really fun for me. And the MCU is something I hold very dear to my heart. It's something that's helped me connect with my family a lot, helped me connect with my friends over the years. It's a really good kind of water cooler conversation starter, if you will. Like, oh man, what's your favorite Marvel movie? Always a good time. I'm gonna rank the entire MCU. So we've got 39 projects here. That's 3 by 13 if you can't count. That's all right, there's a lot. We have 39 total projects. This is the movies. This is the I apologize, that's making noise there. This is the movies. This is the Disney Plus shows. What is not on here is Daredevil. What is not on here is Jessica Jones. Basically, the Netflix shows are just non-existent on this particular list. Though, as far as I'm aware, we definitely know Daredevil is canon now. I think that's been explained or been, put in the whatever. Anyway, Daredevil, Jessica Jones, they're not on here. So I'll start with those two because I think that they are both wonderful shows. I have not seen season 3 of Daredevil, so it might not be fair to rank it anyway. But season 1 and 2, I want to say is an A, if not an S. I think that season 1 and season 2 of Daredevil they were this really awesome blueprint that you just don't see folks really replicating when it comes to superhero-esque shows. Even the Disney Plus shows aren't really hitting on the level that those first 2 seasons of Daredevil did for me. That's a total fucking lie, by the way. I'm making things up and just talking to talk. Daredevil's great. If you haven't seen Daredevil, it is now on Disney Plus, which is also why I believe it's canon. But this person did not put those on here, so we'll leave it be. I did not see Luke Cage, did not see The Defenders, did not see Iron Fist, but Jessica Jones Season 1 is something I really enjoyed. So where Daredevil goes in S or A, I think Jessica Jones Season 1 goes in A or B. I think Jessica Jones Season 1, it was the first show that I had watched, right? Because I think they came around relatively within like a 6-month span of each other, if not a year. And I watched Jessica Jones first. That show defined TV in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, because at the time, if you remember when those came out, they were part of the MCU. They were heavily marketed as such. Of course, we had no real connections. They didn't have anything tying everything together. It was just kind of references to like the New York incident and to, you know, the four heroes and being Hulk, Thor, Cap, and Tony. But I think that first season was a really good blueprint for the shows to come. It just pushed the envelope really well, and I took it very seriously, and I think a lot of the people in my ecosphere took it very seriously. And I loved every moment. The jokes hit. The tension was so well defined in that show. You didn't know what you were really looking at until you got towards the end, and it all started to come together. My problem with Jessica Jones season 1, the reason I say it's probably A or B, is the last 10 minutes of that first season. I think you have this amazing build-up, and I'll try to keep these those two shows relatively spoiler-less here in this discussion, but I'll probably go pretty full spoiler once we get into the list. But I think Jessica Jones is still worth a watch. The whole show is just grand. It's really the last 10 minutes that, I don't want to say ruins that show. I think the journey was still worth it, but that destination you know, it's like you have all this pressure and tension kind of being built up. Like you grab somebody by the head, right? And you're yelling at them or something. Man, this is weird. But then you just kind of snap their neck and it's over. It's a weird way to put that, but that's how Jessica Jones season 1 kind of ended for me. It was just this grand swell and then immediate cut. And I didn't care for that. I wanted there to be more repercussions. And to be fair, that entire show is dealing with the repercussions of the antagonist. But neither here nor there. It's not on the list. I would put it A or B. All right, here we go. These are in release order. Just came out of Wakanda Forever last night. I very much enjoyed that, but we're going to start at the top. Iron Man. Iron Man is the MCU show. I'm sorry, MCU movie that, of course, started it all. Everybody knows that. We've all heard that. Jon Favreau. November. Looking at the wrong calendar. May 2nd, 2008. They put out what I would say is an A-tier movie. That is a wonderful piece of art. Apart from Obadiah Stane. I think Obadiah is a very weak villain. I think a lot of MCU villains are very weak. We'll talk about the strong ones. I think there are 4 strong ones, kind of overall. This is... You can't really say much about Iron Man, right? You can't say much apart from... At the time, 2008, we hadn't seen a superhero movie be taken as seriously. Even when you look at Sam Raimi's Spider-Man and Spider-Man 2, those are so campy. Those are so, really joke-heavy and I don't want to say unrealistic, but Iron Man works because it is a everyman. Because he has no superpowers. He is just powerful. Financially, right? He's able to build. He's intelligent. He's able to build this suit in a cave with a box of scraps. It's that simple. I think the cinematography in this movie is wonderful, especially for 2008, where you don't know how that's really going to work. How are you going to shoot these flying scenes, right? We've seen the kind of awkward stuff with things like Superman Returns, right? That sort of modern superhero film back then. I think one of the complaints people had was the way that they shot the flying in that movie. I think Iron Man fixed a lot of those problems. Robert Downey Jr., of course, as Tony Stark, is born for that role. Born for that character. Everybody knows it. Everybody loves it. Iron Man's an A. Incredible Hulk. A tier? B tier? C tier? I think this is the D. I'll be very upfront. I don't actually think any of these are going to go in F. I really don't. I just rewatched Incredible Hulk. This is, of course, the Ed Norton movie from 2008 as well. This came out a month and some change right after Iron Man, and this is where you started to see those pieces come together, right? You had Tony Stark show up at the end to talk to Ross, I believe, Thunderbolt Ross, and invite them to the Avengers Initiative. This is like we've paved 2 movies kind of back to back And the dichotomy is very felt. Iron Man, great film. Wonderful film. A tier. Hulk was still so by the book and just not I don't want to say unpleasurable. It wasn't unpleasurable to watch. It's just boring. It's just like tried and true. You've seen that movie enough times if you've seen any other superhero movie. It's almost got the same problem I have with Black Adam, where even at the time, what they did in The Incredible Hulk, it just had been done before. You'd seen it all. It wasn't intelligent. It wasn't trying to push the envelope. It was just this kind of gritty take on the Hulk, which everybody's known since the 70s, right? Or the 80s. I think Edward Norton does a really good job as Bruce Banner. I think he doesn't get enough credit for what he did with that character. I think Abomination was a terrible villain in that. And I'm very happy we got sort of a redemptive storytelling take on the character when we got to She-Hulk, but it's not the best. Not the best. So, D. Just boring, honestly. Iron Man 2. C. I'm comfortable with C. I think that Iron Man 2 was the first MC movie that I watched where I was like, oh, this is a thing. We're doing this. And I shouldn't have known that, right? This is 2 years after Iron Man. Came out of my birthday, actually. I went out with 5-6 friends, and we all went to a movie theater, watched this fucking film, and I loved every second of it. I ate every moment up. We're sitting there sleep deprived from this sleepover we had for my birthday, sitting up playing Resident Evil 4 and Rock Band all night. I go into this theater, I sit down, and I hear Shoot to Thrill. And just from scene start to ending credits, it was captivating for me at the time. I was 13. I believe positively that I was 13 or 14. Iron Man 2, I was 14, by the way. Iron Man 2 is a very dear movie to me, but I know it's not good. And going back and watching it, there's some ridiculous moments. I think Mickey Rourke's character is very much overplayed. And then I think Hammer is even worse. I think Hammer, as much as I like, goodness, what's his name? I just saw him in See How They Run. He's just bad to be bad, and there's no real kind of development there. There's no conflict within him. I think that your villain can have sympathetic qualities, and you don't have any of that with Hammer at all. So, C tier. Iron Man 2. Thor gets a bad rap. Thor's going to B. I think Thor's a wonderful movie. I think that this is the most stylistically charged movie in Phase 1. I think this is the movie that really tried to push the envelope. This came out in 2011, directed by Kenneth Branagh, who is known for Shakespearean kind of plays and stuff, or those sorts of movies, rather, kind of Old English stuff. And he brought that to Thor, and he killed it. That's what Thor needed. You needed Asgard to be this believable place set in this time forgotten, if you will, but fantastical, right? That's the whole point of Thor. Thor is a god, and you hit Thor. I'm sorry, you put Thor in this realm with other gods, and the tensions are not there, right? And so story writers recognize that, and they do the fun thing you can do with Thor, where they take away his powers, and they send him to Earth, and now he's off on his own journey trying to figure out who he is and how to be Thor. And what does it mean to be Thor, right? This is a really good fish out of water story. This is a really good sort of, what's the term? This one also kind of holds a special place in my heart, I won't lie. Saw this rather young, pretty shortly after Iron Man 2, of course, because it was like a year later that it came out. But I didn't see it in theater. You fall in love with Chris Hemsworth as an actor kind of towards the end of this movie, where his charm kind of starts to show through a little bit. And then they played with that a lot in the second one, which we'll talk about for sure. But we don't get to Ragnarok without Chris Hemsworth, and we don't get to Ragnarok without this straight story that we have to tell you in Thor. I think the visual effects on this one are some of the best we've seen in the MCU. I again think that the acting is really, really well done here. I think Natalie Portman and Chris Hemsworth have wonderful chemistry together. I've believed it since the start, and it is in this movie where you get this sense of the epic world that is forming. You know, we're not just dealing with Iron Man and Iron Man 2 and the Incredible Hulk. We're not just dealing with these kind of on-Earth stories. You're now in Asgard. You now have space to deal with. You now have gods to deal with. And they do a really good job balancing him and Loki's relationship and making Loki the villain that you don't know if you want to fight for. You know, you have to remember, we did not get the Loki everybody loves in Thor. Loki everybody loves came from Avengers. This is not the best Loki. But even then, developing the characters happens on screen in Thor. And I love it. Absolutely love it. Thor's B. Captain America First Avenger, I also want to say is a B, but I can see it going to a C. If anybody's in chat, let me know what you think. But I am torn here, because I do like First Avenger. Just not a lot. It's not something that I'll throw on and watch. I would be much quicker to throw on Civil War or Winter Soldier before I throw on First Avenger. I'd be much quicker to throw on Thor, even. First Avenger is a really good kind of, I don't want to say coming of age story, but like figuring out who you are and how to be a hero. When you have the inherent quality of being a hero, right? You want to fight for everybody, no matter how hard it can be. You know, I can do this all day is a mantra that you hear throughout throughout Steve Rogers' story. And God, I feel like I'm doing this whole list of disservice because I feel like I'm ranking the heroes. I need to focus more on the movies. I think that Red Skull is a weird villain. It's the obvious villain, right? You take a Nazi, you make it worse. And it works really well. I think that the period piece kind of storytelling they do here is awesome. I think that the set design, the costumes are great. Watching Steve's story play out from beginning to end, and then watching him go down in the ice. This is a really kind of heartfelt story in the end, and I do appreciate it a lot. I feel like I need to stick it in B. I'm going to be very soft on this. Very soft. But, alright, here we go. Avengers. A tier, and I would even argue it is better than Iron Man. I can see myself moving that down. I'll probably start to sort these through as so. Avengers is phenomenal. Avengers is, you had these 5 movies beforehand, right? Some people don't count Hulk, but you have these 4 movies even then that all have these sparks of genius in them. I think that the storytelling in Thor is very underappreciated. I think that the special effects in Iron Man are very underappreciated. I think that the sense of scale and the sense of wonder isn't realized until you get to Avengers. This broke records, right? This blew people away. You had never seen a story like this on the silver screen. You had never seen a story like this come to life. Avengers really does kick fucking ass in the way that it melds every one of these characters together. This script writing, I think, is second to none. I don't think we've had as good of script writing really since. There are plot points that are strange. There are special effects that are a little weak nowadays, but this is their A game, right? Before they realized how big they were, this was their A game. You had, I don't want to say actors that like were dying in their craft, but like nobody really cared who Chris Evans was at that time. It just wasn't the case. Nobody cared about Robert Downey Jr. until Iron Man came in, right? Like he was just a forgotten celebrity. He'd gone through all of his terrible things. You then have Iron Man 2 build him up to be this amazing character in Tony Stark. And he's realized here, right? This is full Tony. And you get full Tony when you put him against the Boy Scout, right? You get full Tony when you put him against the guy that never backs down. Because all Tony ever did was back down. You get Thor coming on world, having to help defend the Earth because his brother just won't fucking stop. everything that Avengers does to set up the MCU going forward is fantastical. The Tesseract, right? You have Black Widow and you have Hawkeye, who are going to kind of be these driving underlying characters throughout the rest of the movies, right? The reason the MCU works is because you have characters like Hawkeye and characters like Black Widow. Like Natasha and Clint really push so much of themselves. Like, they're in every story. And they help connect these worlds together. They help connect these films together, and they help give you that sense of continuity. And they don't start really until Iron Man 2 with Natasha. But then because she's in Avengers, it's not just Tony Stark. It is, no, we're continuing this story. Let's keep talking, you know? It's really well done. It's so well done, honestly. Avengers is an A. Iron Man 3. I'm putting Iron Man 3 over Iron Man. I think Iron Man 3... So, we had Avengers. We had Avengers come through and be this amazing moment in cinema history, right? We had never seen this entourage of superheroes in a film like that. We had never seen these captivating characters played by wonderful actors and actresses. You didn't see that. And now the blueprint was there. We had seen it. How do you continue? How do you keep the story going? Well, you deal with what you set up in Avengers, right? You deal with the New York incident. And you take the most popular character at that time, which was Iron Man, which was Tony Stark, and you give him his third film, you make it a trilogy, and you explore what happened to him and his psyche because of the New York incident. This is an average everyman, right? This is a guy who just was in too big, in too deep rather. Now he's had this life-altering experience that provides him PTSD. Provide being a very poor choice of word there, but Iron Man 3 is so strong in its emotional storytelling, in Tony dealing with who he is, what he's done in his life, what his relationship is with Pepper, what his relationship is with his company. You know, is he the bad guy? Did he cause all of this? Is he still causing problems? Then you have the AIM, right? The AIM side of things, where they just want to be powerful for the sake of being powerful. And Tony was powerful for the sake of being powerful. So it is that kind of direct dichotomy again. I think Iron Man 3 is very much underlooked in the grand scheme of things. I don't think you get any of the weight that you got in Endgame in that moment, right? In the snap, you don't get that emotion. You don't get that driving power, that force of that moment without Iron Man 3. You don't get it without having explored the character the way that they did in this movie. And yes, it's a little silly at times. And yes, it's a little cliched at times. And yes, it does suck when they nearly fucking kill Happy on us. But all of that adds up to this really good, actually well put together movie when you have to juggle so many parts and still continue to set up this universe that you're pushing towards, right? This is also the first Disney published movie. And for the love of fucking God, it needed to be good. Otherwise, Disney was fucked. If this one didn't do good, we don't keep going. Because the fucking one after this, after you have Iron Man 3, is fucking Thor the Dark World. If Iron Man 3 wasn't a good movie, you killed your MCU with these two. Because this is your other D movie. And I would even argue it is below Hulk. I think Dark World is just another boring movie. Just another boring attempt to tell a superhero story that we'd kind of seen before. I think there is really good moments in this. I think the comedy is underlooked and undervalued. I think that it is comedic as fuck. I think it is funny as all can be. Give me 1 second here, guys. I'm just gonna check something. Okay. Sorry about that. moving on. It's boring. There are good parts of it. I think the humor is wonderful. I think you start to see Chris Hemsworth really stretch out his legs and do more, kind of have these really fun character moments and these really fun moments with his family members. I think his mom dying is the most impactful part of this story, and I like every beat that led to that from Christopher Eccleston. I think that's probably the strongest part of this movie is his acting. The character sucks and his intentions suck. It's just evil to be evil. Like, even when they try to give him backstory, the backstory is my people were evil, so I must be evil. Boring as fuck. No depth, no conflict, no charisma, none of it. He's just menacing and capable. That's it. That said, Christopher Eccleston plays that out of the fucking park. It does a wonderful job stealing every fucking scene he's in. So, there's that. But still a D movie. Still probably the worst thing we've seen in the MCU so far. I like Kat Dennings. I like Natalie Portman. I like Chris Hemsworth. Those are three things that kind of help you push through this movie because they're just really charming to watch. And then Christopher Eccleston is this captivating force on screen. That's why you watch this. That's why you kind of continue to watch it. But what Thor: The Dark World does for the MCU is minimal at best. And we don't even see it really come to fruition until we get to Infinity War and Endgame. So that's a D tier. Winter Soldier's an S. I don't really feel like I want to explain this one. Go watch Winter Soldier. Like, this is such a good kind of popcorn, just put it on and enjoy yourself movie. Because it isn't even a superhero film. It was the first one that really proved you can make a different kind of movie and be successful in this genre. This is an espionage thriller, right? This is fucking Cold War style, like, storytelling. Who do you trust? Who can you trust? Do you even trust yourself? Everything Steve Rogers goes through in this movie with Natasha right next to him is just, it is insane that we are only this far in and they took a huge fucking swing in saying, okay, SHIELD, you're now going to be Hydra. Fucking crazy. Again, you have that connection, right? We had gone through 3 movies. I'm sorry, we'd gone 2 movies. You had Iron Man 3 and The Dark World, where you didn't have those connecting characters. You didn't have your Natasha or your Clint. Natasha comes in Winter Soldier and just connects you back to the Avengers and connects you back to Iron Man 2, right? So there's that continuity there. You don't just get that from Steve. You get that from Natasha and, oh my god, Nick Fury. How did I forget that name? It's an S tier movie. It's such a good moment-to-moment, action piece movie, and the dialogue is so smart, and the storytelling without speaking is so fucking smart. The little tiny hints that they throw at you, Stephen Strange, right, being mentioned just out of nowhere, and we don't even see Stephen for another, 4 fucking years after this movie. It's all so fucking well done. I just still in my head cannot believe that we got Winter Soldier that far into the MCU. It's an S tier. Watch it. Guardians of the Galaxy is also an S tier. You had a banger followed by another fucking banger. Chris Pratt steals the show, right? He is Star-Lord. But even beyond that, you have Gamora, who is this, first of all, let's just talk about the Guardians. Who the fuck are the Guardians of the Galaxy? They were nobodies. People had no clue who they were. People wouldn't have cared. People definitely didn't care until you had... Oh. 1 second. Until you had James Gunn behind them and this really good script writing, this really good acting from the likes of Bradley Cooper, because people forget voice acting is acting. He helps to carry this movie through just as much as Peter Quill, just as much as Gamora. Then you have Drax, who is this really fun comedic relief that you don't see a lot of anymore. You don't see a lot of the dry kind of, I don't know, I'm funny, right? This really straight played character. If you talk to my brother Braden, he will mention that people tend to be funny uncled, and he thinks that Drax has been funny uncled and is starting to make jokes, and it's not as good. I don't know if I agree with that, but I see the point. I see how much stronger Drax was in Guardians 1. This is an S-tier movie. The music, the fantastic visual effects, right? You don't really know what space looks like until you see Guardians of the Galaxy. You don't get a good sense of space in Thor. You don't even get a good sense in Avengers when Tony goes off planet, right? Guardians is where you get a really fucking awesome sense of the scope of the universe and who else is in it. And it's just so fun, so funny, so charming. Just from beginning to end, this is a wonderful movie. I do think Winter Soldier is a better film, but this is the one that I would put on all the time. This is probably the MCU movie that I've seen the second most, first being Avengers. So, yeah. Age of Ultron. I'm going to get some shit, but I'm going to put it in A tier, kind of behind Iron Man. I do like Age of Ultron. Again, it's in the A tier. I like it. But I don't like it as much as I like Iron Man 3, or Avengers. It has to balance a lot, and I don't think it does a great job balancing everything. But every character has their moment. Every character is well-purposed in this film. Even fucking Hawkeye gets his moments. Even Aaron Taylor Johnson's character, fucking Quicksilver, gets his moments. It just doesn't... I don't remember anything from this movie when I really try to think back on it, apart from Natasha and Bruce. Of course, Quicksilver dying. I don't remember much of Wanda in this movie even. You know, I don't remember much of Wanda in this film at all. I barely remember Vision. I think that it's awesome to get Vision, and it's cool to end the film with him kind of destroying Ultron, but there's no ramifications from that in the rest of the MCU. They set that up for almost no reason. That said, Vision becomes one of my favorite characters in the MCU as we continue on through the story, but not a great start. Not a good start. Still an A tier. All right, Ant-Man's A. I'm a sucker for the Ant-Man movies. I like Paul Rudd a lot. I think Paul Rudd is probably one of the best actors of our generation, best comedic actors of our generation. I think he's going to be remembered very fondly as he kind of grows on and stops acting. People are going to look back at his films as classics. I think I Love You Man is a really good classic comedy now that people are starting to appreciate a lot more in the way that you have like a Steve Martin film or a John Candy film appreciated. I think I Love You Man is getting there, and that's been kind of cool to see. But I think Ant-Man shows you how Paul Rudd has so much range. He doesn't just get to play a funny man here. He gets to play this really serious superhero as well. And yes, throughout the entire time, he's still being funny and he's still hilarious, and it's Paul Rudd. But there are now stakes in this character's life that matter. Do I believe he's an ex-con? No, it's Paul Rudd. But I believe he's Ant-Man. I believe he is Scott Lang. I think the weakest part of this movie is definitely Cross. I think he's a shit villain. Again, bad to be bad. I think Michael Peña's character is hilarious, and I think that the amount of times that we got jokes out of "he said yes," that line just sticks with me so much. That whole sequence, right, where he's telling him about the Avengers, is so good. So, yeah. There you go. Okay. Also, Michael Douglas. Michael Douglas does a great job. Civil War. S tier. Civil War is so good. Civil War is the movie that... Yes, you had Age of Ultron as an Avengers movie, but you got to see the story they were really putting together in Civil War. Civil War really pushed us towards Endgame. Really pushed us towards Infinity War. Civil War was this kind of line in the sand sort of moment, if you will. You had two sides to this equation. You had Team Team Cap and Team Iron Man, right? You had Tony and you had Steve, who were both right. They're both right. They just aren't talking about it. They're not coming to the conclusion together, and they have to pick their side, and they fall because of that, right? This is probably one of the strongest characters that we've ever seen when it comes to being a villain at this point. We aren't really introduced to Thanos just yet. Thanos is just kind of this kind of underlying force as we go through these movies after Avengers, but it's Baron Zemo, right? That's his name. I call him Bacon Guy, but he is such a good villain because yes, he's essentially evil to be evil, but he's out for vengeance, and he's doing it in a way that no other fucking villain had the smarts to do. He's attacking them from the inside, right? He's making the tower crumble. You know, you hit the foundation, it's gonna fall down, and he does that so well, and you believe that it's gonna work, because for fuck's sake, it does, right? You end this movie without a happy ending. I mean, shit, Rhodey's in a fucking wheelchair, right? Rhodey can't fucking walk, and Tony has to try to help him. You get the good Tony Stank line. Man, God, I fucking love the MCU. It's an S tier. Doctor Strange. A tier? It's tough. It's tough ranking Doctor Strange because I am in agreement with, again, my brother Brayden. I think this is one of our strongest origin movies. It just came after Civil War, which is problematic only for itself, right? You're kind of too big for your own britches. I think that it really does a good job explaining that there's still more to the story, right? We now have time to deal with. We now have the mirror dimension to deal with. We now have giant beings like Dormammu to deal with. And it's so well acted by Benedict Cumberbatch, and it's so well acted